Hey, this is Kim White with the My Sexy Business Team. I am here this morning with the famous Dave Albin. He's one of the top experts of credit in this country. And, yes, he is the same Firewalk Adventures guy who walks on fire. Now he's teaching us how to walk on credit. Welcome, Dave.
Good morning, Kim. This morning I'm learning how to walk on ice. Right, I'm up here in the Appalachian Mountains in the western part of the state of North Carolina, and so we got an ice storm last night. So my power went off, and it was funny because my power just went on like 10 minutes ago. So I'm able to do this. I was going out to my car to be able to plug into my inverter, and I had my little Wi-Fi guy to go out there and do it all with. And so, thank goodness my power came back. So anyway, good morning, everyone.
We know you're dedicated. That's what we know.
Oh, it was going down today, no matter what.
Well, I want to get right into what we've been talking about because this is an exciting, it's been an exciting week. I've learned a lot already and I can't wait. I got notification that I get my book tomorrow, like the hard copy. So I was excited about that. For those of you who are just joining today and haven't been with us all week, we are doing a series on how to master your credit. Most people don't even think about it until they get ready to apply for a loan for something. But that's something that can be very devastating because there are lots of mistakes on credit reports. There are lots of things that can drive your number down, your FICO score down, which will cause your insurance to go up. It will cause you to have all kinds of problems and other things that you might not realize. So Dave is here this week helping all of us learn how to master the stuff that we have not been taught except by the credit companies, which they don't want us to know the things Dave is teaching us. So we are excited because he also brought us numbers today to show us the difference so that you understand the huge value in raising your credit score. And we're not talking about getting into debt so you can raise your credit score. We're not talking about, causing your family hardship. We're actually talking about quite the opposite. So, Dave, what did you find out?
What did I find out? Well, before I give you our daily tip, let me run some numbers here for you. And they're staggering. It's scary how much families lose their family's wealth if you're not focused on your credit and you're not on your game here. So here's what I did. I ran some numbers on a $150,000 mortgage. Okay, pretty at the low end, right? And the numbers I ran here were if, let's say, you had a 750 credit score, which is where I want you. I want you guys up in the mid sevens because that's where the sweet spot is, and that's where the whole dynamic. Once you cross over 7 and you get into the very good credit, again, that's where they treat you like kings and queens and princesses and princes. And so to give you an idea, if you had a 750 credit score and you applied for a loan, right now you could get 3.92%. That would make your monthly payment on that property, $150,000 property, $709.
Wow.
So if you times that times 12, that's $8,500. Let's say your score was pretty good. You were at a 660. And if you go look at the numbers across the United States, that's about an average. It's right in the average spot, which is around 660. That would 5.92, and your payment would go from $709 to $892 a month. And if you multiply that times 12, that's $10,704, or a difference of $2,196 a year. And if you take that times 30 years and you look at those numbers, that's $65,880 to go from your credit, which is pretty good, to very good. I mean, just
and
right
for the
there.
same piece of property. Like, that's the part that I want to reiterate, is that this is the same property, just a different person. It's a different credit score, but it is the exact same property. You're not going to add any more value to your property by having that higher payment.
No. In fact, I've had people say to me on the site, well, I can afford $900 a month. Whoa, wait a minute. I understand what you're saying, but now you're even talking more nonsense, because at the end of the day, what if you were to take the difference here, which is almost $200, and you applied it to the principal every month and you amortize that? You could pay it down like crazy. So, and if you started paying bi-weekly, and what if you get one payment ahead? And again, that's something that you've got to go look at. If you have a car payment or a house payment or any of that, you should be able to go online, and it'll show you that, how much you owe, what date did you pay, and then it should break it down how much went to principal and how much went to interest. And you'll notice that the earlier you pay the payment, the more goes to principal and less goes to interest. Hello, there's our clue, right? So that's the dance. It even shows you, it spells it out for you. That's why you can pay a mortgage down in 7 years if you start to really look at it and amortize it out. I also ran some other numbers, Kim, I think it's important to share here, and that is for somebody that's got more of a lower score, down around 600. So if you had a 750 score, we go back to the 3.92, $700 a month times 12, it's $8,508 in a year. If you have around a 600, which lots of people do, you can still qualify at a 580 down in those scores. FHA, there's loans out there that you can get. However, that's going to kick your interest rate up to 8.92 from 3.92. So you'd go from $700 a month to $1,198 a month. If you multiply the $1,198, that's $14,376 a year. And then if you multiply the difference, which is $5,868 in 1 year, and you multiply that out 30 years, that's $178,000. It's actually it's $178 and $40 over the lifespan of that loan.
Still for the same property.
Same property.
That property is not going to raise value whatsoever by you paying double payments, when if you got your credit score higher and you paid double payments, you would probably pay it off in less than 10 years.
You can buy another house and pay for it in cash.
That's crazy.
It is. It's absurd. But this is the kind of thing. So, why wouldn't they hide it? Mm-hmm. Why wouldn't they cover it? Why would they want to be out teaching this? There's no upside for them. There's a downside. Because at the end of the day, if it's appraised right and you buy the house and you make payments for 3 years and then something goes wrong and they go to foreclosure, guess what? They're walking with the property and you're going to the streets.
Yeah.
So they made all that money during that. And then, of course, they can write it off and they can monetize it and they can do all kinds of things. They're securitizing it. They're turning it into a mortgage-backed security. They're depositing it on Wall Street. So they're making all kinds of money on the back side of it, in the private side of the bank that you know absolutely nothing about. And there's nothing
we have no part or no clue of.
You have no part, no clue of. There's nothing you can do about it except to sit back and take it. So, if you guys want to deal with Wall Street banks, go ahead. I got my butt kicked. We talked about it, I think, on episode 2. No, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to give my family's wealth, my children's money to a Wall Street bank and a bunch of Wall Street type investors. I'm just not going to do that. I'm going to be smart. I'm going to be frugal. I'm going to use credit unions, and I applaud big time Navy Federal Credit Union. They're awesome. The way you get in there is that you have to be either military or you have to have an immediate family member that's current military or past military, and they have to be honorably discharged. Every once in a while, they run deals, which I will keep you guys informed, and they let visitors in. And if you can't get in with Navy Federal Credit Union, it's okay. Don't panic. It's totally all right. I can get you in with Pentagon Federal Credit Union, and there is no military affiliation. You can just get right in. And then again, I have a list of about 55, I think, credit unions all over the continental United States at some point if you want that list. So that just gives you some of the reality. This isn't counting, Kim, like you said, insurance, what you pay for a cell phone. You know, what happens if you don't know what's going on in your credit and you get offered some really awesome job and they do a credit check? Because if they get ready to do that and you're nervous, then you shouldn't be nervous, right? You shouldn't have any, you should know. Like if I go to do business with somebody, let's just say I've done business with some pretty big companies with Firewalk Adventures, my business. You know, when you do business with Google and NASA and, you know, organizations like that, if they want to run a credit check, you think I'm nervous? Zero. Now, back in the old days, I'd be going, right? I'd be freaking out because I already know that I need a cosigner to pay cash.
But we do have a mutual friend who was hired for a job, told that she had the job, and then showed up for the job, and they had run her credit in the meantime, and she had stuff on there she had no idea. And they actually sent her home without the job after promising her the job.
Yeah.
So,
and it, you know, and that can be avoided. You know, that's the consequence of not monitoring your credit and mastering your credit. It's one thing to monitor it. It's another to master it, right? Yeah. There's one thing that, you know, there's a big difference between admitting that you're an alcoholic and then doing something about it, right? So, speaking from experience, 30 years ago, when I put the plug in the jug and took my last drink on June 8th of 1988. So, some of that intoxication spills over into other parts of your life, and this is one of them. And you know, again, people just don't. They want to sweep this under the coat. Oh, I'll do it later. I'll do that. No, that's not the way this works. The consequences now. So again, we've made it really easy and it's really simple. And with me as a backup, we can take people, you know, that are in the unknown to the known. So
and let's mention one more time that, you know, you are referencing a book that you found and read that changed your whole world and has really profited you probably more than $500,000 because of the changes that have been made and the things that it enabled you to do that you couldn't have done.
No.
And so we want to give honor to that too. We want to give credit to the fact that book, Credit Secrets, is a huge part of what we're talking about this week. I've never read it, but I have a copy, like a PDF copy now, and I have a hard copy coming tomorrow that I'm going to continue to talk about it. You're going to continue to talk about it. And if anybody wants to, you know, get the book, we're suggesting you do if you don't want to take this serious, because it is important not to put your head in the sand. Like, it's important. We do that on so many things. We think, you know, we're shuffling kids and we've got to, you know, get dinner on the table. We've got to get to work. We've got to do that stuff. So we get busy and we think we'll think about that later. We're all Scarlett O'Hara, you know, we'll think about that later, or we'll think about that tomorrow. But the problem is tomorrow never comes until there's some kind of a crisis. You go to buy your new car and you wish that you would have been paying attention for the last few months because you could save thousands and thousands of dollars in a car payment even. It makes a difference in your down payment. It makes a difference in like everything. And you just gave a great example of a $150,000 property that can have payments of $700 or $1,200 payments, and the property's the same. You pay an extra $180,000 in interest if your credit's not in order when you buy that piece of property. Yes, you can get the property, but who wants to spend an extra $180,000 because they want it and they didn't take care of what they could have been taking care of all along?
And this happens all the time in our Facebook group, right? Because as I mentioned, we're managing about 34,000 people over there. And so here's what happens. You know, they show up and they haven't had a lot of hope. They've been living with bad credit for years and years and years. Unfortunately, the industry, the bad credit, it preys on people of color. I'll just say it that way, okay? Because it really does. There's discrimination. There's all kinds of stuff going on there. And so, all of a sudden now they bought the book, they come, they read it, and all of a sudden there's this big giant, flood of hope. And even though their credit, they've got a ways to go, they want to run out and buy a house.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no. I mean, you can do whatever you want, but the figures don't lie and liars don't figure, as my daddy used to say. And so if you wait and you be patient and you get your score up to 750 rather than, let's say you were in the low sixes and all of a sudden now you're 650 and now you qualify, you can actually go buy a house. Well, they're still preying on you. Mm-hmm. They know that you've got this scarcity thing going on with the house. They know you're all emotional, so they have you right where they want you. Again, we covered it on day one, a mortgage, death pledge, right? Mort stands for mortician, gage is French for pledge, mortgage, death pledge. So they get you because you're emotionally tied. So if you can break that tie and you can have the discipline to sit back and wait, and here's the cool thing, get pre-approved first. Mm-hmm. Ooh, wait a minute. What are we on to here? When you're pre-approved, now you're a buyer that's empowered. Because now you can go look at a property and go, nope. Ooh, I like this one. Yeah. Oh, they already know I'm pre-approved. So now if they know I'm pre-approved, now if I go in and I start my negotiation skills, which obviously you're also really good at, Kim, and you can help your readers with that. Now you're in there negotiating, and you're in an empowered position rather than a disempowered position. So the snowball effect here of getting your credit, taken care of is just huge. The benefits will pay your family for years and years and years to come.
And it's not a long, I want to keep reiterating the things I keep saying, but it's not a long process, even though it might feel like it when you're wanting to do something. If you wait just a few weeks even, you can have a drastic difference in the number of your credit score and the number of that payment dollars, and why would you not wait just a few weeks to take care of that? Because, I know the tip that you're going to give today is something that will add numbers. It will increase your credit score almost immediately. And why would you not step back and do that instead of, because honestly, when you're talking about the extra $180,000 that you're talking about, what could you do with an extra $180,000? I mean, people don't want to stop and think about that, but that's a pretty good payment on spending some time fixing your credit. You want to increase your income, then decrease your outgo. You want to increase your, the money that you have to spend in a month, then take a few minutes, take some time and do these credit things so that you can have more money in a month. Because if your payment is half of what, it might be right now while you're not fixing anything, and yet you're talking about getting a side job, or you're talking about, cutting out something or needing more money, there's a really quick way to get more money in your budget by doing what you're talking about. And neither one of us benefit from any of you who are listening doing this. We just want you to do this for your sake and for your family and for your legacy. Because how many hundreds of thousands of dollars are we giving away to creditors that really belong to our children, that belong to our great-grandchildren and our great-great-great-grandchildren? I mean,
well, and so many of your listeners are guided biblically, and so that in and of itself, it's very, very clear. Involuntary servitude. You become a slave to the system, literally, and you may not like that. You may not want to call it that. Sorry, you are a slave to their system. And once you get entrenched in that, getting out, digging your way out is not easy. I know. I had to dig my way out the hard way. It wasn't my fault. Just like millions of other Americans when the mortgage bubble hit, who were thrown to the streets, who went through foreclosure, who lost everything. So now that our
But I want to add this too, Dave, because we've made that clear that like a lot of people, it's not their fault, but there's also the other side of there are plenty of people who have made bad choices that it is self-inflicted in not paying attention and not taking responsibility and overextending and living above your means. I mean, there's a lot of other reasons. This works for you just as well. This helps you change those bad decisions into a good future. We don't have to live by our past. Like, we don't have to continue with bad choices or continue that path of, some of us were given a legacy of bad credit. Some of us were given the legacy of not having any idea what to do with money or the lack of money. Like, we had no idea, we had no training in that way. And so I also want to encourage you, if you're listening, even if you did it all the wrong way, today there's hope you can change it all so that the rest of your life you can do something different.
That's a great point, great distinction. And yes, and we get them on our Facebook group page all the time. People come in and they just pour their guts out. They said, hey, I had poor spending habits. My parents never taught me how to balance a checkbook. I never learned about money. I spent more than I made. I got myself in trouble. And there was a snowball effect. And now they come and they go, now I'm learning, how not to do that. I'm learning what, the pain and the consequences of making poor decisions like that. And so sometimes, there's a couple different ways to learn. You can learn by your own mistakes. You can learn by the mistakes of others. And so we see this all the time, and there's a turnaround with them. And now they're being responsible. And I mean, I've had people post things that like, hey, I just got a $15,000 credit limit. Oh my gosh, I got to be really careful. I got to watch my utilization, so, you don't want to take that card over 30%. So on a $15,000 card, do the math, 30% of 15. I mean, that's, you don't want to go over that amount. So, just being cognizant, of, really it's a consciousness, of what you're doing, what you're spending, setting down with a budget, learning these things. And that's the other thing that we're doing here at Credit Secrets over there, is that we're teaching financial intelligence. We're teaching you about credit. We're teaching you about investments that come along that are new and different. And there's a whole bunch of things going on here that you'll see, Kim, that you're exposed to once you get your book and read it. And it's pretty amazing stuff. So anyway, if you want me to get into this morning's tip, I'll be happy to do that, unless you wanted to talk about something else before I jump into that.
No, I think we need to get into today's tip. I just wanted to make that clear that, stuff happens.
Yeah, I say it another way because I'm a street boy, but I think we all understand what you're saying. So what I want to talk to you guys about today is tip number 4 on day 4 is piggybacking. And piggybacking is a way for you to take your score that's kind of down here and take it straight up. So what you have to do is you have to find someone, either a family member or a friend, that has good credit, that has a credit card, hopefully with somewhat of a high credit limit. So if you have a uncle, and Uncle George is a stable guy, pays all his bills, has a good business, and you can go to him and say, hey, Uncle Bill, here's what's going on in my life. I'm trying to rebuild my credit, and I learned about this method called piggybacking. And there's absolutely no risk to you at all, none. And here's how it works. All you're going to do is put me as an authorized user on your card. Now, here's what I want you to know. They're going to send the card to you, all right? And I want you to cut it up or put it somewhere. I don't want your name words. I don't want access to any of it. All I want to do is I'm going to ride on your coattails. And so what happens, Kim, is that Uncle George, who's got a 792 credit score, has this credit card that he has a $20,000 limit on, and he owes $93 because he uses it once in a while. And that's what you do want him to do. You want him to use it once in a while and maybe buy a tank of gas or whatever. And then that good credit score from that particular credit card is going to show up on the person who piggybacked off of them. And so it's a great way, to get your score, to get it up, to get a good positive report on your report. Now you have to be. Let me show you. There's the caution side. What's the downside of doing this? The upside's great. The downside is if Uncle George goes into a drunken stupor one night and goes out and buys a 747, and he runs that card up to $19,400, and his utilization goes up to 90%, that's going to drop his score, and it's going to drop your score. Or if he misses a payment, or it goes into default, or anything like this, it's something unbeknownst to you. Again, you can ride the gravy train up, but if something goes wrong, you can ride the gravy train down too. So you just want to make sure that whoever you piggyback with is really, really responsible. They're in really good shape financially. They're very, again, responsible. They pay all their bills. They take care of it. And again, you just want to make sure that when you're presenting this to them, that there's absolutely no risk on their part. You're not going to use the card. You don't have access to any of their information. Take the card, cut it up, do whatever you want to do. I'm just going to ride on your good credit rating on that particular card.
I had no idea that you could do it like no risk, because, the danger of being a co-signer of anything is that you are giving a death pledge for someone else who has already had an issue. So, I don't think it's wise to co-sign on anything, but that's not what this is.
No, this is exactly not what this is. You are nothing more than an authorized user. Yeah. You're not a co-signer. Now, here's the interesting thing. Well, what happens if Uncle George goes out and he buys that 747 and he doesn't make a payment? Am I liable? No, you're not. Because Uncle George is the one that used his card. So they know that. So you would not be on the line for having to pay for his 747. So that's an important note as well. Co-signing, different story. I'll add a little bit of that. You got to be really careful there. And if you do co-sign, there's one thing that you must keep your eye on at all times, and that is, I know you signed for your niece, and Susie's a sweet little girl, and she works at McDonald's, and she works every day. She's been working there for 2 years now. But if Susie misses a payment, it goes against your credit. Your credit drops. So basically what you can do, unbeknownst to her, if you want to, if you co-sign, you can go back to the bank and say, hey, I want to set up a marker. I want to set up a fail-safe, strategy here, so that if Susie, my niece, misses a payment, I want her to know that I've set up an automatic payment with you, so that if she misses it and it's supposed to be there on the 23rd, that on the 24th, you automatically take that payment out of my checking account, right? This is between you and the bank. Don't tell Susie.
No.
Right? Because then she can go, oh, hey, guess what? My Uncle George, he's a great guy. He's already got a backup. No, don't tell him. I wouldn't tell him that. That way, they're less likely to use that if they know that there's a backup there. Let them make the payment. You're doing them a huge favor. You're helping, get on their feet. You're helping them establish credit. All that stuff is going on there. So the least they need to do is be absolutely 100% responsible, take responsibility for their actions, and make sure they make that payment on time. And again, so you better know that if you're going to co-sign, you better know that person really well. And again, I would make sure I have a backup plan, just so your credit doesn't get dinged if they inadvertently forget to make the payment, or whatever happens to them. They lose their job, and then they're too embarrassed to come tell you. They just think it's going to go away, which we know isn't.
Well,
so there you go. That's tip number 4, piggybacking. And when you get your book, Kim, which is tomorrow, which I'm really excited for you, you'll see. That's another thing too, by the way, I wanted to let you know, is that on your PDF version, when you open that in the top right-hand corner, there's a search option. So you could go up there and write piggybacking, and then it'll show you which page it's on, and it finds it instantly for you. So it's a great resource for you to do that. By the way, plus the Facebook page that you're on, this is for folks that may come down that road with us. On your Facebook page, on the left-hand side, it says search this group. And most people know, if they've seen a Facebook page, they have searched this group. So if you were to go over there and write in piggybacking everybody that's asked any questions about piggybacking, out of 34,000 people on our Facebook page, it'll bring up every question, every person that's ever typed that in. So student loans or, whatever it is, it's really easy to find both in the search option of the PDF version of the book and on our Facebook page, which just makes it just so easy. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, that's awesome though. And then that is a great tip because of the no risk factor. I'm just being honest. I've never heard of this until you told me. Right. And a lot of it had to do with, if you talk to me about co-signing, I'm out because I understand what that means. I am the one that's responsible. That's what I know. But with this, there is no risk. I love that. I love that I love this tip. That's what I love.
Well, not making light of the 5 tips that we're giving your audience, but it's just the tip of the iceberg here. It's just, I could talk for weeks about all the tips and all the things. And, again, for a $49 investment for this book is, that's less than taking a family of 4 out to dinner. Yeah. So, and again, this could be a book. You go, I don't know that I really need it right now, but you know what? Why don't I just buy it and I'll put it over here. And then that way, if I ever do need it, whatever, or somebody in my family, because my credit score right now is an 809. Well, even if it is an 809, believe me, this book will still help you. Because again, we're teaching financial intelligence. And with so many people homeschooling and things like that, to do that, if you're a homeschooler with your family, oh my gosh, you got to have this book. You got to teach this to your kids. Yeah. Because again, they're not going to learn this. They're not going to learn it in high school. They're not going to learn it in college. They're not going to learn it anywhere. So why not learn it from their parents so that it's deeply entrenched in their and who they are, so that they come out of this with an identity that that they operate with good credit, with great credit.
Well, and they will be taught, Dave, but it will be taught by the creditors themselves. I think that's the part that you have to remember is anything that you want to hide your head in the sand about, somebody else is there to take care of that for you. So if you want your kids to know financial intelligence instead of financial ignorance, you better get to teaching them. And honestly, again, that goes back to us though, as grown-ups, we don't like to adult. Adulting's not my favorite. But here's the thing, I also don't want to pay an extra $180,000 for a piece of property that doesn't even cost $180,000. That's to me is just, you show me those numbers and that just makes it real. Instead of just talking about, well, it'll be more. You just showed us how it could be $180,000 more for the exact same piece of property.
Exact same piece of property, just based on you being, unfortunately, you're ignorant. We're all ignorant until we learn, right? We don't know what we don't know until we know. And so, yeah, it's just crazy. And here you are, and it's wrong, because here's all these people out there that have low credit scores, and all of a sudden they get a book now and they jump it up to 620 or 630, which is great because they were at 522, so they're 100 points higher than they were. They're ecstatic. You ought to see some of these people. Once they break into the 600 club, they go crazy. They are just jumping up and down, and they're happy, and I'm really happy for them. But I'm thinking, you got a ways to go, because that's great, but you're still falling into that category that they're going to take advantage of you, and they know. And see, that's a big marketplace right there. You think about all these fast bucks, and these companies that are all over the country that have these short-term, really high-interest loans. People with bad to low credit. There's millions and millions and millions of people in this country that are in that category. And again, there's industries that surround that, and just they're just they're total sharks. They're just they just prey on those people, knowing that they've got them emotionally, they've got them right where they want them. It's like buying the house, right? You sit down to buy the house. How many people read the paperwork? You said it the other day, and even if you did read it, you're not going to understand it. And unless you've got, unless you're a mortgage attorney who understands, real estate law, you're not going to understand it anyway. Just sign it, 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 and go. And then pretend, that everything's going to be okay and that you know it. Sometimes I do stuff. I'll sit and read it, even though I don't understand it, just to make the person who's, doing the paperwork feel uncomfortable.
Because I'm not sure they understand it either.
When I bought my last car, that was quite an experience. This is another tip that kind of goes into this, is that when I was working through my credit and doing it all, I found that Experian had the highest score. For some reason, some of the black marks on my other two credit reports, Equifax and TransUnion, didn't show up on Experian for whatever reason. And you're going to see these credit bureaus, you're going to be all over the place. There's no reciprocity between these guys. They don't share information. So you could have a 650 with one bureau, and you could have a 622 with another one. So my Experian was higher. And so I focused on that bureau. I said, you know what? I'm going to work on that one, all the accounts that are with that one. And I did that, and I got my score up. And that's when I got an American Express card, because that American Express deals with Experian. That's all they use. And then CarMax. Well, hell, I wasn't able to go buy a car. Well, no. There's another example. You see these car lots; they're all over the place.
Buy here.
Buy here, finance here.
Yeah.
Well, somebody with a 780 credit score, they probably don't walk in there very often, right? Why would they? They don't need to buy a car at 10% or 12% or 15, and that's what these guys, are going to charge you. Plus, they have a key to your car. You don't make one payment, boom, they're going to come steal your car back.
Yeah.
So all kinds of rules and just stuff when you do that. And I had to buy my van. Now I found a place that was a really pretty cool place, and I bought a van, and I had used it during my time when I was driving Uber and Lyft back, a few years ago. And so that kind of worked out. But then when I got my credit up, I walked in CarMax, and I looked at a Kia Sedona Kia Sedona, my van, beautiful little van, had low mileage on it, had all the bells and whistles. It was gorgeous. And I'm a surfer boy, so I like vans. And so yeah, I walked in and boom, I was approved just like that. And I was kind of like, are you sure? You sure you don't want to double check? I mean, I don't want to come back and do the paperwork if I'm not really, you know what I mean? You're in disbelief.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's a real uplifting part of that. And that's when I went, I went from buying the book, reading it, putting it down, reading it in, putting it down, reading it, and going, wow, this could really work. I went from this could really work to it's working.
Yes.
Here's an American Express card, and you got pretty much a brand new van. And so, in fact, I'm at that point now. I've had the van for over 2 years, and you know how much I drive, and I'm approaching. Where am I? I think I've got 80,000 miles on it. 40,000 miles a year. So now I'm gonna trade. Well, I'm pretty sure I know what I'm going to get, but I'm not 100% sure. So but my point is that I took one bureau and I worked on that one bureau and I got it really cleaned up. And then, it spilled over and I cleaned them all up. And then, I went from having the 14 bad accounts and the 4 public filings to having nothing. All negative information on my credit report got removed following the steps in that book.
That's awesome.
It is.
Jamie said that she went from a 530 to a 790.
Who did that?
Jamie. So that's like a huge jump too, and that took some work. But you know what? I think the part that you have proven with even just the numbers of the mortgage, it's worth the effort. We should not be playing Scarlett O'Hara with our credit. We should be dealing with it, even if it's ugly. We should be dealing with it so that we can have a different future than we've had a past.
Yeah, absolutely. So
we are so far over time, Dave. we have been so excited about this topic though, and helping people. You know, my sexy business team is here to help you create a sexy business for a sexy life, and having your credit in order is part of that sexy. I think that you becoming the CEO of you personally, not just your business, but of you, is vital to your success and to your wealth. People want to be wealthy, but they don't want to take care of it. But to whom much is giving, much is required. And part of the wealthy side of things is to start now being responsible and taking care of, your finances. So thank you, Dave, for tip number 4 and day number 4. We've got one more tomorrow. We will be back on at 8 a.m. Central Standard Time with another tip and some final words of wisdom from Mr. Albin himself. So thank you for joining us today. Be sure and join us tomorrow. If you missed the other 4 episodes, they're all on this page, so you can go back and watch them all. This is Kim White.
The grand finale is tomorrow, so I've got something really special for you guys, so you definitely want to be here.
Yay. Grand finale. This is Kim White with the My Sexy Business Team. We'll be back for the grand finale tomorrow.
Bye, everyone.